we're associates.
Hello, this is Demon Phoenix continuing my Deathmatch walkthrough for New Game Plus, and now we're at the point where we've completed the main game and we're going to be moving on to the expansions. Now if you've been following the walkthrough and you were getting the Deathmatch walkthrough on New Game Plus, you'd already have it by this point. So this is more just for fun and to have a few tips and tricks that you can use if you want to play Hearts of Stone on Deathmatch as well. This first part, after you've met Shani, there's quite a few drowners, and you can use Necrophage Oil, Aard decoction and the Ursine gear like we always do, and we can bunch them all up and then get a few charges on Arendite, which is useful. And then after that we've got to fight the Toad boss, and one of the things you could use is you could get a few of the extra ability points and get Magic Trap, which is the ability that you just saw me have there, and I'll come to explain how Magic Trap helps in this fight. It's far from necessary, but you can see here that one of the other things they're doing is applying quite a few of the superior potions that are a lot of good fun and very useful for this fight. So we've got Superior Thunderbolt, Petri Filter, Full Moon, Tawny Owl and Golden Oriole. Now normally when you apply those they take up a lot of your toxicity, and you'd not be able to apply the decoctions that we usually want, because we still want the Ekimara decoction, the Arakas decoction, the Ancient Leshen decoction and the Warthog decoction. But what you can do is, because we've already put points into fast metabolism, you can apply the potions before you go through this door at the end of the sort of dungeon area where you will be fighting the Toad, and the toxicity flies down. And then when the toxicity has gone back to 0, you've still got the potions active, but then you can switch to the abilities that you want. Now you can see at the top we've also swapped Tissue Transmutation for Killing Spree, because we don't need Killing Spree for this particular fight. And then we swap out Fast Metabolism and use Cursed Oil and then the regular decoctions, and we put Magic Trap where we would normally have had Fast Metabolism. So if you're struggling with this fight, this is the way to make it as easy as possible. So Tissue Transmutation gives you that extra vitality. Even though we can normally tank every hit going, the Toad Prince does hit extremely hard, even on Deathmatch and with the correct setup and gear like we've got there. For the actual fight itself, if you do have a slot for Magic Trap, it's extremely useful because it can trap the frog in place and get you in a good few hits. Now the easiest and the main ways of doing a lot of damage to it are to either stun it with Magic Trap and then use Whirl or Rend. But more importantly, you can also use Igni when we've got the Superior Petri Filter there, so that we can burn it, and you can see the burn damage does absolutely tons. And what you can also use is the tracking bolts or the broadhead bolts with the crossbow, which you don't normally really have to resort to, but here they're very useful because you can inflict bleeding as well as the fire damage at the same time, and you can see that we've very quickly got a lot of damage over time there. You can also use the Dancing Star Bombs, as I just did there, to inflict the burn from a distance. So with the burning and bleeding you can do a lot of damage very quickly, and it just makes the fight a little safer. You see Magic Trap, if it's out of range it won't actually strike the Toad boss, but it's quite useful if you can actually hit it like that. Get in a few good hits there, and it's a very useful ability just for this fight. It's also useful for the Arachnomorphs in the DLC, and they show up in Blood and Wine as well, so it's not completely useless after this as well, and it's not like we need the points at this point because we're so late in the game that you'll have all the ability points for our main build already. You can still have Aard Sweep, and again that works with the Ancient Leshen decoction, so it can increase your stamina regeneration, which is very useful. So that's how you beat the Toad. You're just going to see the last little trick is to use the Northern Wind Bombs as well, and they can freeze it to let you get a load of good hits in. Now just a quick thing about if you do use those points and equip Magic Trap for this fight, you don't have an opportunity to switch out any abilities after having fought the Toad Prince before the next fight, which is a battle against the mage and multiple guards protecting him. Now you would want Killing Spree for that fight normally, because that's against multiple enemies and will get you 100% critical hit chance for when you're fighting the Ofieri Mage, as we're coming on to. So you got to make the decision if you want to use those sort of 2 spare slots that we can switch up things with. Keep one of those as Killing Spree if you want, or you can just use Tissue Transmutation and Magic Trap. So a few things to bear in mind, any combination will work. As you can see here, after Geralt breaks free and we have to fight these guys, I am using the version that I just showed in the Toad Prince fight where I do have Magic Trap. So even though I don't have Killing Spree, this fight still isn't difficult, so you can do it either way. Now when this fight starts, Geralt starts off dressed in the buff apart from his trousers, and what you can do is you can just very quickly go into the menu, and whilst you're already in battle, so you can't switch around the abilities or anything like that in the character screen, you can use everything in your inventory screen like it would normally. So you see here, because I'm already in battle, I have magic trap and not killing spree from the toad fight, and you don't have an opportunity to switch that, but you still have the opportunity to equip all of your gear and everything else like that. So we're going to put the gloves and the chest armor and everything else back on, and then we can reapply the decoctions just like that. So because I unequipped fast metabolism before the Toad Prince fight, I don't have the added luxury of the toxicity flying down from that usually, and because we also don't really need the dancing star for this fight, I'm just going to swap out the salmon, because if the guards are giving you problems, you can stun them with the salmon bomb. So you can see here, although we've not got fast metabolism, I'm still able to deal with this fight pretty easily. I would say, because if you're doing it that way without fast metabolism, you only have a choice of one potion until the toxicity wears off. I would just say use the superior Tornial, because I always love having the good balance of stamina regeneration. So because you've got a fight against multiple enemies here, you can take the time to fight these enemies and use Aard Sweep a load of times before you actually get to fighting the mage, because you can't hurt the mage until the guards are actually dead, which is a strange thing, but you have to kill the guards first. The mage won't really do anything to you whilst you're killing the guards, so it's not that difficult. But you can see here that I get a load of hits in with Aard Sweep, and what that does is it will raise my stamina regeneration for the rest of the fight, as we've been making good use of throughout New Game Plus with this build. And what that essentially means is, because it's the same fight against the mage, you already start off with having massive stamina regeneration. So you can use Aard Sweep to stun him repeatedly, and also get in hits with heavy attacks or rend every time you use Aard Sweep. So just dodge out of the way of the whirlwind, because you don't want to get hit by that, it does tons of damage. And if you get a chance, you can use Aard Sweep every now and again whilst dodging as well, just to further boost that stamina regeneration. Now what you want to do is, when we've got the stamina regeneration high like that, you can very quickly get close to the mage, close the gap, and then you'll see here, just do Aard Sweep, dodge forward, and then hit him with a heavy attack, and you can just do that until he's dead. So it makes what is otherwise a very difficult and annoying fight really easy. Now the Ekimara decoction's regenerating my vitality as I do that, and as soon as I get to full health, you can see the Water Hag decoction kicks in, bang, and he is dead pretty easily. So that's a good way of making the mage fight a little bit easier. Now after this, the last part of this particular mission, the Evil Soft First Touches, is against Olgierd. You can see there I've applied Fixative and Battle Frenzy to the slots. Now Battle Frenzy costs an extra point, so I've got that from the general skill tree, and what that does is, instead of your adrenaline increasing your damage, each adrenaline point, instead of giving 10% damage, it gives 8% critical hit chance. Now this is a good little setup that you can use if you know that you're going into a scripted fight against a single enemy. If you're not going to be fighting multiple enemies, there's no point in having killing spree, so you can have Battle Frenzy instead in that slot. So you lose 30% damage when you're at max adrenaline, but you gain 24% critical hit damage against a single enemy. So that is extremely useful if you're fighting a steel sword enemy there. I'm just going to let it rock for this, because I love this little quote. Oh, Ginger David Beckham, you're so cool. Anyway, so when we're fighting Olgierd here, we've got the killing spree ability switched out for Battle Frenzy, and like I say, we've got Fixative, because then we can use Whirl without having to worry about the Hangman's Venom wearing off. So you can see, because we've got Aard Sweep, this is actually going to be even easier than when we fought him with the correct setup in the regular playthrough. If you watch that, there are a few tactics I can use in the Olgierd fight. But with Aard Sweep and the Ancient Leshen decoction added to the build with the extra points that you have in New Game Plus, it's even better and it's even easier to defeat him. So you can see here he's going for all of his normal tricks, but I can just repeatedly use Aard Sweep, and then I can tank the hits if Olgierd does get any hits in. Easily could keep Quen up if I was that bothered, but I'm obviously not, because I'm not taking the damage, and you can just use Aard Sweep and heavy attacks to mow him down. So those two fights there are really good examples of how usually difficult fights become not very difficult at all with the Aard Sweep Ancient Leshen decoction added on to the Uber build at the end of New Game Plus, and that's really interesting. So again, you just want to make sure that you have the Hangman's Venom on your steel sword. and you can beat Olgierd pretty easily with that. When your toxicity wears off a little bit, because you want a past metabolism here, so it takes lower to go down, but you can use any of the potions you want, Superior Maribor or anything like that. You see there again, when I'd got a little stun on Olgierd, I got a good few hits of Whirling, and they were all doing critical hit damage because of having Battle Frenzy, and which is extremely useful and a good little technique to be able to use. So it's good to be able to put these extra points that you get in New Game Plus, even after you've finished the Uber build. You can put them into interesting things, switch up tactics a little bit, and experiment with some stuff if you want. So I hope that was useful. I really enjoyed that Olgierd fight, it's really good. Don't lose your head, mate. Anyway, after we've completed the Olgierd fight, you will be, because we're at the sort of level where we started Hearts of Stone, you may be getting towards the sort of level where you're getting your master-crafted armor. So just don't forget, here you can see that I was using the Superior Ursine Legendary Chest Armor, and the same for the Steel Sword, the Legendary Ursine Superior Sword. So I would be at the level now where I can upgrade them after having completed this quest. So go back to the room, right, and I upgrade the armor and the Steel Sword to be the Legendary Mastercrafted for each version. And don't forget that if you are to upgrade the gear like that and it has enchantments on the gear, I had Levity on the chest piece and Severance on the Steel Sword, you would have to reapply those enchantments. So you would have to have the one of each glyph or rune stone that you need for the enchantments and reapply them again. So what we're going to be doing next is we've got a couple of different quests that follow on from Hearts of Stone, where we have to grant Olgierd's wishes. And after the first is going to the auction house, and there's a few things to take into consideration there, including getting the diagrams for the legendary Viper armor, which is the New Game Plus set of that, and also for doing the Dead Man's Party quest, where you have to show Vladimir the time of his life even though he's dead. Now there isn't a great deal of detail to go into for those quests because there are very few actual battles or anything. It's mostly just dialogue and story and a few interesting things there. So we'll be covering those in the next episode, just to move us along with Hearts of Stone before we can complete that quest and go into Blood and Wine. So as always, thank you for watching the videos. I hope you've enjoyed and found this useful, and if you have, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel because it does help me out, and also leave any comments or queries that you have so we can discuss. Thank you very much and have a good day on the path.